what did it mean to go to school there. So my name is Ignacio Abella. I'm a congregante in 1967, December 1967. Everyone, there are 12 of us here tonight. So we have some pictures. This is a picture of the house. There are two houses. This is the second house that is no longer there, okay? There were two houses, one that was de madera y esta is the brick. Okay, obviamente this looks more house. Okay. So what I want to do today is every one of the 12, we're going to have 5 minutes to give our, what did it mean to go to school there, whether you were part of the ACU or not, whether you were living in the house or not. And then, obviamente, Andy, raise your hand. Andy is going to leave it for the end because he's going to talk about the future projects of the ACU in Gainesville in the future. So this is the house, the second house, and I think this house, Miguelito, was closed down in 1972, right? So it was there for about 4 or 5 years, okay? 4 or 5 years. Okay, so, I lived in the house from 1967 until I got married March 22, 1969. Father Llorente drove to Gainesville, and Lourdes and I were married by Father Llorente at St. Patrick's Church in Gainesville. So I lived in the house 67, 68, and part of 69. Okay, so what we want to do here is, from the oldest to the younger, you're going to give a 5 minutes testimony. What did it mean to be part of UF, whether you were part of the agrupación or not, and whether you live in the house or not. So I believe the oldest agrupado here is Roberto Beach. So Roberto, come and estrénate.
Buenas noches a todos. Mi nombre es Roberto Vic. Tengo 84 años cumplidos. Vine a los Estados Unidos en el 1961, después de Vallejo, Chile. Entré en la agrupación en el 60. Pasé a congregante en el 61 con el padre Llorente en la Embajada de España, escondido, y al día siguiente, al otro día, vino para Miami. Nos quedamos allá con el padre Barbeito, íbamos a la iglesia de Reina a hacer la misa. No pudimos más nunca entrar en la agrupación de La Habana, en San Miguel. Yo estuve con el padre Barbeito, que era mi director espiritual, en la última misa que se celebró en la capilla de la agrupación, que fue el día que se supo de la invasión de Vallejo, Chile. No sabíamos qué había pasado. En la madrugada llegaron los milicianos, se quedaron con la agrupación. Yo tenía el piscicorre, the station wagon, that used to be the ACU's car. I drove it. So Barbeito told me, let's get out of here when he finished Mass. And I said, what's wrong with it? Why are those two guys there? He says, I'll tell you later. You don't know. I didn't even know about the Vallejo Chino, nothing. For whoever is here that met Juanín Pereira, he was with me during the Mass. He was in the agrupación that morning. So we left, we went to Belén. I dropped the cura al Padre Barbeito, and then we find out that there was Bay of Pigs, thinking that it was a success. So everybody was very happy until the day after. And then we found out that everything was gone, you know. You know, we were completely dead emotionally. And I was called by Gillo Maderal a few weeks, 2 weeks after. I didn't know what it was for, but he and I, and Juanín and Enrique Baroira, went to la Embajada de España. So we went to the embassy. Llorente was hidden in there with Miguel Figueroa, one of the oldest persons who wrote el himno de la agrupación. So we got the mass. I was consecrated May the 5th, 1961. And from there on, it was just decided. Barbeito left. First, Llorente left. We didn't know when. I took Barbeito to the boat. So he left with all the priests, all the Jesuits that were out of Cuba. So we said goodbye to him, and I got the waiver to leave to the United States, but I never made it. So eventually, a friend of ours, another agrupado, Aurelio Busot, who used to be a novicio, to be a priest, a Jesuit, he called Padre Baldor. Padre Baldor sent me the visa, and I left to Venezuela. I didn't have money to buy the ticket, so I sent a telegraph to Barbeito. I need to leave, I don't have money. I need $300. So the day after, I got $300 in Havana. I bought my ticket. We left on a boat, no camarote, no room, sleeping on wood on the outside for a week, and we finally made it to Maracaibo. And then the three of us, Aurelio Busot, Tony Diez, and me, we went from Havana to Maracaibo, and we stayed in Maracaibo. And from Maracaibo, eventually I went to Caracas. And in Caracas, we didn't know what to do or who were going to be. And another agrupado, Luis Gutierrez, was waiting for us. And he took us to an apartment that the Jesuits got rented for the guys who went al noviciado. We stayed there for a week. I found a job, the first job that was offered to me. I took it. I lasted a week because I was offered to go to a retreat, which was un cursillo de cristiandad. Ese cursillo de cristiandad was for 7 days, free. We ate, and we have somewhere to live. So everybody said, we go. So we went there for a week. We got the cursillo de cristiandad, and it happened to be that some Venezuelan guys asked me if I wanted to stay in Venezuela, or in Mérida, actually. So it was el Valle de los Caídos, que era un monumento a students of the Jesuit school that got an airplane accident and everybody died. So they got el Valle de los Caídos. And right there, I was offered to stay in Mérida. And I said, okay, I stay in Mérida. What I'm going to do in this shitty place? There is nothing to do here, but there is a university. So I was offered to live en el Colegio San José de los Jesuitas for free. I have a bed, I could take a shower, and I got breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then the guys helped me to register in school. So I started first year of architecture again. I went to Villanova in Havana. I did 1 year, actually 1 semester, and I didn't do any more. And then I started again in Caracas, in Maracay, in Mérida. So I stayed in Mérida for 1.5 years. And el padre Llorente, the year after, went to Venezuela, to Caracas, to see the guys, the agrupados in Caracas. And he called me if I could see him in Caracas. And I said, well, I would like to, but how do I go? I mean, how can I go to Caracas? So another Jesuita, el Padre Guzmán, gave me 50 bolívares. Me dijo, con esto, you get to Caracas. And from there, you are on your own. So I took a por puesto, it's like a taxi, 12 hours, arrived in Caracas, and I went to see Llorente en la casa del obispo Masvidal. Bosa Masvidal lived in Caracas at that time. I went to see el Padre Llorente. Me dijo que bueno, ¿qué haces aquí? Le digo, bueno, estoy estudiando. Me quedé volví para Venezuela, para Mérida. Hice el primer año de arquitectura en Mérida. En Mérida yo era el cubanito bocón que me metía en todas las asambleas contra la gente de izquierda. Comenzaba la guerrilla en Venezuela y estuve a punto de que me tiraran de un tercer piso para abajo. Vino un venezolano, me agarró y me dijo, te van a empujar, vamos. And he pulled me out. I didn't even know. So Barbeito, I used to write to Barbeito every single day. And Barbeito wrote me back every single day. So Barbeito told me, you have to get out of there. And I said, by the time, I had already brought my mother and my sister to Venezuela. How did I make it? Nowadays, I don't even know. But I was able to get the visa. I got the money to pay for the trip, which was given to, I collected it from friends of a friend and the family people. My life has been full of anecdotes. I mean, things that now I think back and I don't even believe how it happened. But I guess the Holy Spirit, I know why. It's the Virgin Mary. She is the one who protected me. And I have no doubt about it. Every single day, I took this shitty thing and I hold it. And I said, you have to help. It's the only thing I have. You. And I did. And it has been 70 years. And still, she's with me every single shitty day, every single minute, from the moment that I wake up to the moment that I go to bed. So this is what I tell my grandson, believe on the Virgin Mary. Ask her whatever you want. She'll do it for you. She will help. So if it is proof of faith, this is it and it's me. And I can raise my hand and go on a fire and say, yes, she did it for me. Since then, eventually my mother went to Venezuela and Llorente came back and said, I want you back in Miami. And I said, Father, how in the hell shall I now leave my mother? My sister was 10 years old. That's the only thing they got. And now I'm going to tell her, I ain't leaving you. She says, well, I want you back in Miami. So I told her, and she said, whatever you need to do, you do it. And I said, well, you have to live with somebody. So another agrupado, some of the people you know, Aurelio Busot, el hermano brother of Carlos Busot, agrupado, living in Maracaibo, is one of the guys who left Cuba with me. So I called him and I said, listen, I want to leave my mother and my sister with you and your family. Can I do it? I said, of course. Come back, come to Miami, to Maracaibo. Come here, they stay with us, and you go to Miami. And I arrived in Miami October the 20th, 1962. A few days before the crisis of the famous missiles and whatever it was. And so I said, well, again, this is the Virgin Mary. I came to Miami to be close to Cuba. So we are leaving. We're going back to Cuba, and here we are 70 years after, and I'm still thinking we might come back. But from that moment on, I stay in Miami. I learned English, went to University of Miami, studied architecture. 2 years after, I couldn't afford to stay here, so I transferred to Gainesville. Somebody told me there is a university in Gainesville that they have architecture. And I said, where is Gainesville? Somewhere in North Florida. I said, okay. Then we applied to go to Gainesville. So I sent the letter, fill out the application by hand, no laptop, no computer. Mail stamp back, and I got by mail an application. I filled it up, sent it back again. 2 weeks after, I got a letter that I was admitted to University of Florida, much before you, much long before you. At that time, on January the 3rd, I got on a Greyhound with one bag and one T-square. You know what a ruler is to draw? You know, you move it and you draw. That's all my luggage, and that was all my life. A bag that I brought from Cuba, and the ruler that I walk like the cross that Christ got on his back. I got my T-square, my ruler, with me. And I arrived in Gainesville, January the 3rd, con un frío de cojones, un frío de 30 grados. And I kept thinking, what am I doing in this shitty place? I got out of the Greyhound, and Luis Gutierrez, some of you might know him.
Luis Gutierrez is also an ACU member that lived in the house.
He was already in Gainesville. Luis Gutierrez, el troglodita, era una bestia, era lo más burro que ustedes se pueden imaginar como persona, no como inteligente. Pero era burro, era una bestia. ¿Quién conoció a Luis Gutiérrez? ¿Era o no era una bestia? Y Lourdes su mujer era una santa, que no sé cómo coño lo aguantaba, pero lo aguantó. Luis Gutiérrez me recogió y me dijo, le digo, ¿a dónde vamos? Me dijo, a la casa de la agrupación. Ah, bueno, está bien. Vamos a la casa de la agrupación y fuimos a la primera casa. No esta, la casita de madera. Y cuando llego a la casita de madera, habían 6 o 8 personas, o estudiantes. Le digo, where am I going to be? 15. And he says, what is that? 15. At the time, there were 15. 15. But I was told, you go upstairs. And I said, what is it upstairs? We call it El Palomar. El Palomar was the attic of the house. It was a stair outside, up, the roof, and you have to walk bending down because you will hit your head. And then we placed 2 beds. I got one, somebody else got the second bed. No bathroom, no nothing. You want to pee, you have to go downstairs. You want to take a shower, you go downstairs. And our living was downstairs. Up, only to sleep. And there we go. We stay there. And then I registered University of Florida. So I found out where to register. I found out the only person besides Luis Gutierrez was Sergio. Sergio, ¿dónde está? Sergio. Sergio was just got married, and he was living across the street from the university. And at least I knew somebody besides those people. And I used to have dinner almost on a daily basis en casa de Sergio.
How many people were living at that time in the house?
En la house como 12 o 15 personas. We were 12 o 15 personas. We were 4 on each bedroom. Some of them, I think they were literas, bunk beds. And we stayed there. A week after, the temperature went down to about 30. And I didn't even know. But in the morning, we went up, flush the toilet, no water. Go to the sink, no water. And I said, Jesus. You know, we didn't pay somebody didn't pay the bill. And we didn't know who paid the bill. I guess Llorente paid the bill. So I said, well, what do we do? Everybody. So we found out that the house was so old that all the pipes were exterior and were exposed. The pipes frozen, so there was no water until about 12 o'clock. You know, sun started, melting down, so we got eventually water, and then we started our daily life, going and walking to school, learning the school, learning the campus, registered, and Colonel Faris was our salvation. He was the foreign student advisor at the time. Everybody was very confident on whatever he did. He helped us with the Cuban loan, and he helped us with finding work. I found my first part-time job.
The U.S. Department of Education gave us a student loan for us to go
for all the Cuban, all the Cuban loans.
That was our.
And there were $500 for a semester. What is that?
833, no?
Well, in Miami I got 500, but it didn't even was enough to pay the tuition. Anyway, I work part-time with the Colonel Faris. Imagen, el cubanito ayudando a estudiantes extranjeros cómo se vive en los Estados Unidos. Y yo ni coño sabía cómo vivir yo. Y yo le tenía que decir a los demás cómo se hacía. Porque the other people, they never knew that there was a laundry, that you put money, that they were washing, that you put the dryer and they put money, and then the clothes come out dry. Nobody knew shit, but we learned that a year before. So we were the wise men, and they were the ignorant people. So I was the one, my job was take the foreign students, walk them around, tell them that we eat in a cafeteria, that you pay for your food, that you can buy the food in the student cafeteria, that you have to wash your own clothes, that you have to use the dryer, that you have to this and that. These people is like the Cubans who come here. Nowadays, they know more than us, that we have been here 60 years. Those people didn't know nothing. They came and they were like, this is a different planet with a different atmosphere. How do you walk? Well, there is a sidewalk and you walk along here. And then you go to this. And then that was my first part-time job here in Florida. In Miami, I used to do many other things. In Ignacio Abellas uncle or father. I
Father,
was my father used to have a little cafeteria,
You were the all-star dishwasher.
and I was the dishwasher. There was the guy
La
who
calle
served the
8 y
food,
la 11 Avenida.
and I used to take the food, clean the dishes, wash the dishes, and back. That was my first job part-time in the United States, a Vegas restaurant. From there, I got another part-time job when I came to Florida, from Florida to Miami, a flower shop on Biscayne Boulevard for Christmas and for some other holidays. And I was hired to take like peanuts, the thorns, out of the roses. So we got the rose, and Roberto Vic used to take the stem and with my little hand take out all the thorns. So that when people with some money buy a dozen of roses, got no thorns. But at the end of the day, I was pinched every single finger. But that's the only way I got at least so much to pay for dinner. Lunch, at that time, I got free in La Agrupación because I used to wash Barbatos and Llorente's bathroom and used to vacuum the bedrooms, the office bedroom, and the house. In the Agrupación, I was supposed to vacuum cleaner, clean the stairs, and clean the hallway. So Llorente made a deal with me. He said, okay, you take care of the bedroom, the office, and the whole house. And you got you got dinner free. La agrupación paga por ti. And what's his name? Say, okay, if you help me do the dishes, then I'll give you lunch. So I used to serve everybody before I ate. So I served, then I took the dishes, washed the dishes, then I ate. So I got lunch free and dinner free. From there on, I went second year, third year, brought my mother and sister back to the United States, kept working, and eventually I graduated. I finished my bachelor's degree in architecture.
And you were living still in the house in Gainesville?
I was living in the house in Gainesville? No. By the time that I graduated, when I brought my mother and sister, I rented a one-bedroom apartment. And I lived, I have a sofa bed, and my sister was 12 years old, my mother. They didn't work, she didn't work. My sister was in school, and for whatever I have to pay rent, I have to pay Florida Power and Light, I have to pay dinner, I have to pay everything. So we still managed it. We went through and survived, because that's what we did. We survived until I finished. And the moment that I graduated, a few months later, I tell my mother, goodbye, mommy, me voy para Miami. Now that you brought me here, you got me out of Venezuela, you got me here, and then now you got in Miami. And Miami, we came to Gainesville, and then we are here, and then you're leaving. And I said, that's life. That's the way it has to be.
So you had good times in the house in Gainesville?
What is that?
You enjoy your...
I enjoy my time, but when I get to think about it, it was a piece of shit. It was a very hard time. I was happy. I don't regret it, but it was hard. Now I think, and I think about my grandchildren going through what I did, and I will feel so sorry and so sad for them that I would never allow them. I would never allow any of my grandchildren to go through what I did. Even though we can say it makes character, it builds you up as a man, and you are mature, and you are this, that's bullshit. Forget it. That doesn't work. You want for your children and you want for your grandchildren the best you can. And maybe what you didn't have, at least what I didn't have. Some of you, I see some young guys. You. And you, don't laugh. You too. You are young enough. You are young enough.
Okay.
You probably don't know
Roberto,
what
thank
is
you for your
going
time. Thank
That's,
you. Okay, Sergio,
that's the story.
you got 7 minutes.
Well, I took
Gracias, Roberto.
Let me see. I became a congregante in 1960. I joined Agrupación 58. I left Cuba in 1961. We went to Spain, then to Puerto Rico. While I was in Puerto Rico, I went to school at night, and then I decided to go to Gainesville for my bachelor's degree. It was difficult because I was supporting my parents, my family, like everybody else. And we went to Gainesville. When in 1963, I thought I was the only Cuban in Gainesville, but no, there was another Cuban there. His name was Leopoldo Figueroa. He had recently lost his wife. So we got together, play tennis or whatever, and I live on $1 a day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So on Saturdays, it was a get-together with La Agrupación, with the couples that were there, Ignacio Garcia Bengochea and other people. I never lived in the residence. There was no residence when I lived there. I was one of the first people going to Gainesville. So the big thing was a get-together on Saturday, and it was great that we, as agrupados, were able to meet with other agrupados in the middle of nowhere in Gainesville. So we get together on Saturdays. We had a prayer group. Everybody was married except for Leopoldo and I. They used to serve food, which was great because I had a very tight budget I lost a lot of weight. Very tight budget. I live in the dorms of the university, and it was a cultural shock because being from a middle-class family and respectful of things, the things that are happening in that dorm were not something to be shared. So eventually, my father got very sick in Puerto Rico, and I had to go back to Puerto Rico to support them because he couldn't work. So I went back to Puerto Rico, and I lived there for a while, and in 1964, December 26, my wife and I married. So I then continued in Gainesville as a married guy. Roberto was telling you about a lot of the young people saw us as responsible old people. I was 22 and she was 20. So we were the ones that were married, and obviously we invited people to come to our house and feel the idea of home. I went to Gainesville. The residence was a nightmare in my mind, and the way things were working out for some people. Very difficult to have a bunch of guys that were single. We had no experience in dealing with American life, and it was great that they were able to get together. I finished in Gainesville in '67 in my degree in architecture, like Roberto, and then we went up north and got another degree and so on. One thing that I want to emphasize is that in any place that I have been since I left Cuba, including Spain and Puerto Rico, Gainesville, North Carolina, and Washington, there have been an agrupación. An agrupación is any place where you have more than one agrupado. We get together on Saturdays, we pray together, we share meal together, and that made a big difference in our life, knowing that you were not the only one. And I think that's something that we can take ourselves when we feel a little bit left over, and especially the people which are in other places. My experience with the residents was limited. I went to go there sometimes to bring books or bring whatever. Many of the young people that were single will invite themselves to our house to have dinner, and Lali loved it, my wife, because she didn't have a clue how to cook. So it was a great experience afterwards. For me, Gainesville was very tough because I didn't have any money. But I got my degree, and I got to meet people over there. And La Agrupación, through the married couples that live there, some of which are still alive today, the Suits, for example, helped me a lot in having something to center my life on. I say thank you.
Okay, I think the next one in age is Jesus. And then Orlando, you're next after Jesus. Yeah.
¿Y tú dónde caes ahí?
Yo soy el último.
Okay, my name is Jesus Leon. I'm also from Cuba. Came to the United States in 1960. I won't give you the details because it's too long. Just mention a couple of things. One, I spent 4 weeks. I spent 4 weeks in a hospital in Philadelphia, and out of the 4 weeks, 2.5 weeks was in full isolation. And I was given the last rites of the Catholic Church because I thought I was going to die. Well, it turns out that I didn't die. I'm here, right? And from Philadelphia, I came back to Miami. From Miami, went 1 year to Miami-Dade College, and then went to Gainesville in September 1964. I was part of the first group of ACU members in the ACU house, the old house. And I can give you a lot of stories, you know, about good, bad, not so good stories. No shower, yeah. But the most important thing I want to share with you is that I met a number of people. Most of them were like me, who were poor, with a capital P. And to give you an idea of how poor we were, one Saturday night, Orlando Carnero, another guy, and I together put together enough money to buy 1 loaf of bread and 2 cans of Chef Boyardee. That was dinner for 3 people. That's how poor we were. So we were poor, except in the relationship with other people and the support we got from our friends there. So there are people who, like Orlando, we live together there in Gainesville in that house, that I shall never forget, because you know there's experience. But there are a bunch of people who were in Gainesville who were extremely supportive. So what did believing in the ACU in Gainesville meant for me was a group of people who always had your back, regardless of what it was, the problem. They had your back. They would help you in any way they could, even though most of us were dirt poor. I think there was a guy, maybe 2, out of the 13 or 14 residents who had some money. One was Hugo Drecain, whose father owned half of a pharmacy in Miami. And another was Emilio Herrera, who had been in Pasión, and they were given, you know, support. But the rest of us were, see if you can find what to do to eat, was our goal. I mean. So anyway, I had from a civil point of view, civilian life, it was not easy. From an educational point of view, it was very good. I have, you know, a degree that opened doors for me, and opened doors a lot. I mean, I lived in Gainesville, but I worked in Gainesville. I worked in Atlanta. I moved from Atlanta to Madrid, Spain, to work as an engineer. From Madrid, moved back to Atlanta. From Atlanta, moved back to Madrid, and then moved back to Maryland. Great opportunities that appear because of 2 things. Well, I say 3 things. One is the DNA and the example I got from my parents. And 2, the hard work that my wife and I put. And 3rd, the opportunities we took. I mean, people said, why are you going to Spain to work? I mean, you live in the United States. Well, it was an opportunity, and I took it. And it was a good choice. So you're going to have opportunities in life. Moving your family to Spain is a big deal. It was not a big deal to me from a personal point of view because they pay for everything, the company. And they gave me a car, and they paid me a big salary. So the second time I moved to Spain, I was like, hey, this is the life. I'll take it. But you have to take the opportunities in life. So my advice is find a group of friends that can be your friends when things are not so good and when things are good. Number 1. 2, make sure you take the opportunities that come to you, think about it, meditate, pray, but don't abandon them because they may be difficult, like moving to Spain twice. I mean, that was not easy, but it was the right thing to do. So I had a great time in Gainesville. It was tough because I had no money, it's true, but we had great camaraderie, we had a great group, we got along most of the time very well, and so it was a great experience, and I shall always remember that. And I loved it, and I, highly recommend that if you can find a group of real friends who will stand with you all the time.
Jesus, I'm wondering, I came to Gainesville at the tail end
Yeah.
of the Agrupación's presence in Gainesville.
Yeah.
Was the Agrupación, when you were there, was it structured like it is with formation groups?
Absolutely, yeah. Our instructor apperante's name was Ignacio Garcia Bengochea, who was a professional guy who lived in ACU member, who lived in Gainesville, and he was instructor. So it was, most of the talks were divided among the people. So, 1 week would be Ignacio, another week would be
And we used to listen to Padre Llorente.
tapes, yeah.
They send it on a tape, and we put the tape recorder. Tape recorder.
It was a cassette recorder, it was very advanced.
No cassette.
Yeah. Anyway, my experience in Gainesville was very good. It was an easy, but a lot of things in life that are good are not necessarily easy. Okay, so anyway, that's.
Okay. I think we're going by age.
A ver, ¿no vamos a ver la fotografía? Yeah, well, mi nombre es Orlando Carneiro. My name is Orlando Carneiro. And I became a congregante in 1965. Actually, it was in Atlanta. The reason that I joined La Agrupación was because of economic reasons. Don Pepe Riera, que ya he already passed away, he knew that I was going to the University of Miami, very expensive place to go to. And when La ACU opened the house, he told me, I said, why don't you join them, Actually, they were responsible for bringing me into the Catholic faith. And his wife was la directora y fundadora of the Cuban Chorale, la Coral Cubana. She taught us how to love Mary. So by the time I got into ACU was the, going to college in religion. I remember los círculos that every one of us, you remember do you still have the books, the pamphlets? You still have them? Well, they will assign to us, and that we had to make a presentation. And I hated those presentations because most of the folks, I perceive most of the people there that they were into religion and they could elaborate, and you have Jesus Leon, who is a walking brain, talking about, Virgin Mary, and here I am going by the book. And I forgot most of the things that I had to say. I was very panicky, when that happened. But anyway, that was one of the tough experiences that I had. We lived in a house, 15 Santos Varones, that we went to Mass every single morning. It doesn't matter if it rained, if it was cold, if it was hot. We would go to church and at 6 o'clock in the morning, which meant that we have to leave at 5:30 because it was not closed, So that's not the house. That is a chalet in Miami Beach. The house was a very modest, very modest house. Huh?
We're seeing the old house as well. But never mind, we're gonna
Okay, all right, well, 15 people in a house with 2 bathrooms. So can you picture this, somebody taking a shower with a shower closed, with the curtain closed, while somebody was pooping and the other one was shaving. I'm not kidding you. That's actually how we survived to be able to get to class in the mornings. We starved. There were nights that we went to bed without food in our stomachs. It was rough. I don't know if you are familiar with the food that the government gave us, the cans, the Spam that I hate now. I can't even look at it. But we would take that meat, we would make croquettes or picadillo or whatever, we will put it as a spread on our every day. So we starved, When his mother-in-law appeared across the street, that was a salvation.
Do you recognize that person?
Yeah, I was called El Robo, the balloon, because I would explode. I was in charge of the residents. So when somebody opened the door and there was a lot of noise, that's my face is reflecting that quiet down out there. That's the small library that we had. We had a library, okay? And I was talking about Feb, God bless her. She would cook for us. We would get $333. We would pay La Agrupación $100 for the trimester, and then we had to pay close to $100. That's not the house. And many times we would leave, we go back to Miami on vacation, and we would not pay Fe. His mother-in-law, the whole money that we owed her. Of course, we will give it back to her once that we got the loan again, because we got it, every trimester. I want to leave you with the following, which is picking up what Jesus said. It was tough, it was rough, but the union the bonding that was created among all of us, still we are in touch. I am not coming to La Guardia because I guess I am after I left Gainesville, I moved to New York, and I got disbanded, and I have continued to be disbanded. Jesus brought me back in Atlanta, and I share some talks with the kids at the time, and now here I am. On Tuesdays I sing now that I've retired, and I have rehearsals on Tuesdays, but I'm going to try to make sure that I come as much as I can. So are we going to see the pictures or not?
That's what we got. Orlando was el jefe de la residencia, which was a tough job.
Wow.
Jefe de la residencia.
I was blessed.
Pretty young, was he like the youngest or not?
And we have weekly meetings. Alguien me cogió la comida del emperador.
Yeah. Well, see, no, it wasn't bad. I really don't think. Roberto and I must have lived in a different house because I didn't feel that it was that tough. It was very rough, but yes, it made us better people. It makes us to appreciate what we had today, and we all succeeded. We all succeeded. We had a good principle that was built for us at La Agrupación. And then we carry that to our mission. My wife tells me that one of the reasons that she married me was because I was different than the people that she knew at the time. She married very young. I was 26 and she was 19. And then once that she started meeting some of my ACU friends, then she said, that's why I married you. And right now, as I am not with you all the time, she is with the Fiat group, meeting every single Monday. Yeah, well, Thursday, and they have the rosary on Mondays. And she's the one that now is giving me a great example, you know. Again, the Virgin Mary has been with me always. Always. And right now I am here in front of you. And for those young people, this is a great opportunity for you to really get to know about the Virgin, about Jesus, but intelligently. Not because my grandmother, because this is how I was brought up, my grandmother was the one who taught me about the Virgin Mary. But here you're going to learn, you know, specifically why we believe in what we believe. So take the time, listen to your elders, the people here that are given the time to help you out. You will look back at it, and I see it as a great experience. It made me what I am, and I succeeded. I became the vice president of the New York Times company. So something worked for me, even though I must tell you this in secret. I studied electrical engineering, and when I took my last exam, it was power was the subject matter. And it was a verbal presentation. And that guy, it was an Indian guy from India. And he started asking me questions. And he said, do you realize that you don't know anything about what you're going to be doing in the future? And I said to him, yes, that is true. But you cannot fail me, because this is the last subject, and I have to get my degree. Because I was sent, my parents sent me to the United States to get a degree. So I need for you to help me out to get that degree. What I mean by that is I did pass the course. He took pity on me. But I succeeded later on. That doesn't mean that you don't need a degree, but a degree is helpful. I ended up in human resources, and my degree is in electrical engineering. Anyway, I had a bunch of pictures for you, but I'm going to stop right here. Okay, all right. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, my name is Miguel Macens, Miguelito, better known. Believe it or not, I'm a Peter Pan. I came to the United States in 1962. Then I was on the campament with the Maris brothers. After there, I went to Miami Dade High School when it used to be white. And from there, when I finished 1966, my father used to work at the ACU at nighttime, serving the table for Father Llorente and Barbator and the residents. So I started going to the ACU. And I was at Miami Dade studying architecture. And then I became a congregant in 1968. And from 1969, I went to University of Florida, continued my study in architecture. I got there on September 69 at the house this is the house, Ignacio. My last bedroom was the one right corner up there, and the little building back there, it was the library, and we had another building, a structure on the back, which it was the study hall, and that's where we'd have the reunions and pray the rosary. At that time, when I moved there were 14 guys living in the house. It was Fran Bango, who studied with me in high school, and Eduardo Anton, Julio Alvarez, and there were another agrupado, Luis Coutier, and Emilio Gonzalez Chavez, and he finished that year, and he married, and he moved to Jacksonville. At that time, the Cuban loan would give us $1,000 per year, and the quarter cost $125, and we pay the ACU, and we have Fe, Ignacio mother-in-law, dinner 5 times every week, $6 a week, a bargain. You had a plate, a hot plate, and everything like that. But school architecture was tough. I was running out of money. My parents were old, and they cannot support me. So my last year, on the 5th year architecture, I took 18 hours, 20, and 24. The design course was 8 hours. So I was able to survive those 24 hours, graduated from the University of Florida. One thing is funny that Paco remembers, during those years I was the house resident, the chief. We never lack of toilet paper, courtesy of the University of Florida Architecture School. I used to bring that and say, we need a toilet paper. Bring toilet paper from the school of architecture. Wait for the janitor to put the rolls, and then it came down. The school of architecture had a old building that used to be a dormitory for the girls, and that was a wood barrack. And that they give us a 4th year and the 5th year a studio to do all the design, everything, and practically we live there inside those little studio because you don't have time to anything. During the group I was there, which I was the last resident chief, and the house was closed in June. Paco Trujillo was living there, Pedro Roao, Jose Trujillo, and Alfredo Recio, who rests in peace. Well, I was the only congregant. The rest were aspirants, and they became congregant later on, which is good. Every Monday night, we used to have a meeting, a prayer, a rosary. Father Llorente used to go there to visit us. Barbato never made it because of his age, but we had a good time, and we cooperate each other. And I used to cook there, and I learned how to cook, and I would cook for the gang, for the canalla. And the school architecture, it was a bunch of Cuban guys, but Jason was one of them, and we used to meet there at the corner by the tree to BS and talk about the courses and everything. And everybody was having a good time, but also it was difficult too because of the intensity of the study school, we had in the school architecture.
We used to call it the School of Architecture and the Fanatical Arts.
So we used to suffer there. But for the end, I finally graduated, came to Miami, and years later, I married my wife, and this year we going to be 45 years married. And last month we visit Greece in a pilgrimage, and I'm gonna send some photos to Eric. And November I'm going to Spain, another pilgrimage. so from here on, okay, Sergio, so get ready for some Brenda. Anything, that's it about it.
Quick question. Why don't you mention Barbato? I never met him. Was he Cuban or Spanish?
attended the School of Architecture and the Fanatical Arts, like all these gentlemen. And when I got there, it was 1974. I left by 1976. I had met my wife back in 1970 when I had finished Berlin and went to Miami-Dade, and we left together to Gainesville, and we studied there. She studied psychology. I studied architecture. Many of the professors that I knew, all of you guys probably knew. I knew, because when I got there, I knew Pedro Robao and a few of the other guys, because I had met them when I went up there to meet with the School of Architecture. Anyway, it was a lot of fun. By the time I got there, by the way, it was a lot of fun. And I had a great time. I had my own room in the, what we would call the ghetto where I lived. I had my own room, it's true. We had 4 rooms, and we had 1 bathroom. It was not within the room. And upstairs, there were 4 rooms, and then again, another bathroom. But I remember the barracks. I did study in the barracks. We did have our studio in the barracks. We lived there practically every day. Many of the professors were tough. I remember one particular guy who was so tough that one of our Cuban fellow students actually went up to him, took a pair of scissors, and cut off his tie because he was so rough. The guy used to take I remember this particular guy who was excellent as a designer and as a student. I mean, his drafting was just impeccable. His models were just a work of art. And he would walk in, and the first time he laughed, he took it. We were at the new building where he took it and threw it out the window from the 2nd floor. Second time he walked in, and he threw it on the floor and danced on it. The third time, the guy actually came back with another model very quickly, and he came into the class. He laughed, and he left, and the guy was actually pulling out his hairs because he didn't know what to make of it. But I did enjoy living later on in a group of apartments called Landmark in an area that was called Sin City. Not S-I-N, it's C-I-N. And I had a large room with my own bathroom and everything. I mean, it was enjoyable. We had a pool and everything. So, I mean, I lived it up. I mean, while I was there, and I had my wife, who was my girlfriend. French Quarters, yeah, Landmark, yeah, French Quarters, yes. And I was there, and when I finished and I left, I went to UM because they had changed the program to a 4-2. And so I finished the 5th year at UM, and I took my state boards in 1983 and passed them, and that was about it. So that's my end of story.
My name is Robert Chisholm. Robert Chisholm Latour. I was born in Havana. My family was from Boston and Oriente, because there were a lot of French in Oriente. My grandmother and my grandfather, I never met my maternal, it was Eugène Latour y Lucila Loza. But they lived in, I think he went to Columbia and they stayed in New York to live, so all my mother and all my uncles were born in New York, didn't go to Cuba till many years later. And my other brother, Everett Chisholm, was from Boston, and they were all engineers. So I hear that my uncle Richard Chisholm was one of the first group of the agrupación, and he became a Jesuit priest. And I think he had Father Willie's job at one time, and he was one of the group that brought Belen here. And then he became the head of the Jesuit There's a building right there in the Vatican. I forget the name of the building. He was the head of that. Ahí en el Vaticano. Entonces, my other uncle, Edward Chisholm, they were all, everybody on the Chisholm side was an engineer. He left and worked for Disney when he got out of Cuba, and he was one of the team that did the Magic Kingdom back in the 60s. So if you walk down the street, you see his name. Edward Chisholm is part of the group. And my mother, when I was in high school, always said that she wanted me to join a agrupación, but you know, I was 17 years old and you know, wasn't too interested in that. But my mother was very religious, and my grandmother would pray, you know, at 3 o'clock every day. She would say a rosary. My grandmother. At any rate, so then I graduated from Gainesville in 1973. And there, when I was in Gainesville, I knew Paco Trujillo. Pedro Roa was my roommate for a while. Miguelito Mazenza would run into him all the time. He always had a smile on his face. And yes, it was very, very rough. They wanted you to quit. It was like Marine boot camp there in those places. And, you know, many of the professors were World War II veterans and combat veterans and all that.
There used to be a teacher there that would come to a student and say, you better change your major because you don't belong to the school architecture. And that person left me, he went to another major. That was the way they do it to you.
Yeah.
Are you cut it or you out of here? Go and try banana, whatever.
Yeah, and people would have nervous breakdowns, and people would start crying and all that stuff while they were in Gainesville. At least when I was there, but you know. And then, so I've always felt that somebody was taking care of me somehow. I don't know why, but I always, whenever I had a tough exam, I would call my mother and say, enciende una velita que tengo un examen mañana. And my mother was always giving me these prayer things, and there was a bishop here in Miami that was an architect by training, Gracida, I forget. He wasn't a bishop, he was a priest. He became a bishop in Texas, but he would send me all the architectural records through my mother. But I would go to Fez's house. My first year I went to Fez for about a year. I would take out the cantina. I didn't stay to eat. I would take the cantina back with Juan Lescano. I don't know if you guys know him. He's passed away. Right? And entonces Pedro Roa was my roommate for about two quarters. And then, yeah, and he became very successful. Everybody that went to school there became very, very well trained and very, very successful. So fast forward, I'm not a congregante, I'm an aspirante or something like that. Yeah. In training. And so a friend of mine had some issues, and I don't know why I called, ¿cómo tú te llamas? El alcalde. Joe Rascos. The Rascos and the Chisholms go back over 100 years because there was a Jesuit, Emilio that was a Jesuit, and he was friends with Richard Chisholm, my uncle. So the Rascos and Chisholms go back a long time, and I knew the Rascos, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And so I called Joe and I said, why don't we, you know, let's go to the agrupación. I don't know where that came from. I have no clue. You know, we started coming here, and I stayed, and I tried to come regularly. And, you know, I saw an old man crossing the street this evening. I didn't know who it was, but I'm very happy to know it was Joe. And I'm glad he was able to cross the street without any problem. And anyway, so I am blessed because his son, Hutchie, is married to my daughter, Jacqueline. And it's really a fantastic family. But they trained us very, very well in Gainesville, and they really put you through the grinder, at least in our department. I graduated in '73 with a lot of qualified people. One of them is designing the Trump Tower and fitting a 747 in the lobby.
Gary and his grand. Okay. You have 1 minute.
We're gonna wrap, we're wrapping it up. We're wrapping it up. No, we're wrapping it up. Okay.
Thank you for saying.
Got to Miami in '62, graduated,
For all the non-UF guys staying here.
graduated Miami High '69, Miami-Dade 2 years, paid my way through college, didn't know la agrupación. I met the agrupación when I met Ignacio about 50 years ago. So I graduated in '73, electrical engineer, and I'm now in formation here. Now, Andy, I'm going to turn it over to Andy, and he's going to talk about, okay, his past, you'll have another 30 minutes. You'll have all of my time. And then you can tell about why we're the three of us are here.
Got it. Thank you. I know we're standing between everybody here and the soccer game Argentina is playing right now. I'm sure there's a lot of interest to watch that. So anyway, as you've heard me say earlier, I was at University of Florida, 1970 to 74. I was in the School of Business. I learned of the agrupación while I was in Gainesville. I was introduced by my brother Alfredo here in Miami, and I learned that there was a house up there, physically a property, and I had a couple of friends who were living in the house at the time. And when I visited, I thought it was like Animal House, somebody was saying earlier. It was really the tail end of the story of the history of the ACU House in Gainesville. I was there when Father Llorente came to close it down. I remember there was a fellow there from Tampa, Felipe Manteiga. I don't know if anybody knows that name. I got to know Felipe, and he, with Father Llorente, went to close it down. It had lost its purpose. The people who were living there, from what I understood, were basically tenants. There was no interest in the agrupación from the majority of the guys that were there. So it was closed down during those years. While I was there, I did my first exercises. I drove to somewhere in Palm Beach County. I have another brother, Our Lady of Florida. So I was beginning to get acquainted with the agrupación back at the time. And I caught what I thought were some really good years. A lot of my good friends today are folks that I met at the agrupación. So it really has had a very positive influence in me. Fast forwarding to what we're doing today, I'm involved with Jerry Portela and Jay Velasco in the apostolate that the ACU has now at the University of Florida. We're going on our 6th year. Thanks to Eric Lastres, who is now a novitiate in the Jesuit order, made the connection between the agrupación and back then Father David Roshinsky, who was the pastor at the time, back 5-6 years ago, opened the door for us to come in the agrupación. The way he described it is that he thought the agrupación was a perfect landing place for the students once they left Gainesville, because he said, once they leave here, I don't know what happens. If they're lucky, they end up in a good parish, and if not, who knows? So I see your organization as a really good landing place for them to continue staying close to their faith. The young man here to my right is an incoming freshman. Jerry's grandson will be coming in soon, and we're expecting that he's going to be part of Catholic Gators once he's up there. So we go once a month. You guys have heard the story before. And we provide Ignatian spirituality formation. We now have a formal aspirantado group that is meeting there as well. We had our first spiritual exercises earlier in March this year, and already we've set next March to have spiritual exercises again. We have the pleasure of having the former campus minister, Seth Caraecle, has been hired by the agrupación to have an administrative position helping Eric here. He's expected any day to arrive in Miami with his family, and will be working here full-time. And we think he'll be a great help for us to continue our work with Catholic Gators once we start the new academic year. So basically, we've kind of gone full circle from closing down the house to the possibility of maybe establishing another house. There's the desire to do it, both from the current pastor, Father Blair, as well as the ACU, to have something started up again. So here we go, it's going around.
So, David's dad got an apartment, leased an apartment in the same building with the Catholic Gators, right behind the church. So that's where he's gonna be living, starting in the fall. So he might be the first. So he might be the first habitant there of what could become, a house. So we'll see. By the way, my time in Gainesville, all I did was go see Bobby Chisholm play at Dubs. That's all we did. When you played, that's right, when you played. Catarro, that's right. But anyway, thank you for.
Thank you, guys.